Well, how are you, man? Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. What time is it over there right now?
It's a little after 6 p.m.
6 p.m. Yeah. What normally typically happens at night for you?
At night. At night, I'm usually done. I got my family, my wife. We like quality time. We understand how important that is. So, cuddle time is real big in my household.
I love that. I love that. I think that's so good, man. You've had a pretty remarkable journey. You've undergone a pretty remarkable transformation. But could you walk us through the pivotal moments and the changes that have followed?
Man, at what point? I mean, there's a lot to get into, and a lot of stages in life. So you mean
Yeah,
at about what age?
walk us through in the last 15 years, what's been happening with you?
Oh, that's 15 years. Well, in the last 15 years, a lot has happened, just like you said. And yeah, a transformation it's been huge. And I spent 15 years in Missouri State Prison. So most of the time that you're describing, I was actually incarcerated. Back in 2024, back in 2007, actually, at the age of 24, was when I became incarcerated. So as you can imagine, life had took his big turns. And one thing for sure, God has kept me on the path. He's kept me protected. And as a kid going in, 24 years old, you might say, I'm a man. I used to think I was a man at the time, and I would say, could nobody teach me anything at that time, just hard-headed and ready to take on the world. But I learned a lot while I was incarcerated. And as you can imagine, I had never been in trouble before as far as going to jail or anything like that. And I went from that to being put away, knowing that I had a long road ahead of me.
Yeah. What did you get incarcerated for?
Yes. Actually, I was involved in a drunk driver accident. I was under the influence, and police went to stop me after a minor fender bender. And I can honestly say that I was not in the right state of mind on many different levels. And unfortunately, I didn't heed and I didn't stop. So a chase proceeded. And, you know, after a lengthy chase, I actually got into a car accident with a cyclist who was coming out. He was
Oh,
pulling out.
shit.
So, yes. And I tried to stop. I hit the brakes. And I was driving an 83 LTD coupe. So these cars are heavy and they don't stop on a dime. So the car slides at least 20 feet. And I see this cyclist, this young man driving, and he's riding his bike and he's going across my car. And right at the end, he got all the way past my car. And right before he got past me on the driver's side, I collided with him. And he rolled onto my hood and hit my windshield and came down on the pavement. And unfortunately, that wasn't the end of it. And the police that was chasing me, he ended up not stopping. And he runs this red light and runs him over, crushes him, drags him, and takes him 50 feet down the road. And as you can imagine, he was just broken into pieces, unfortunately. And his name is Christopher Cooper. And it's so unfortunate what happened. And obviously, it was never my intention to hurt him or anybody. And, only God controls these things. And, if his mother gets to watch this, I want her to know that not many days go by without me thinking about her and her family. And unfortunately, the way the system is set up, it's set up to where here it is 17 years after the fact. And I've never been able to sit down and actually speak to her. And even though I got to apologize the day that I was sentenced, when I pled guilty, you know, at least I was able to apologize that day. And the judge himself said that instead of giving me the 20 years, that was the lid on the plea deal. Instead of giving me 20, after hearing my apology, he said I wasn't a bad person and that he hoped that I took this time to do some growing and come back to my family, and only gave me the 15. But I want her to know that I'm sorry, and it's always weighing on me. It's always weighing on me.
So, you know what, too, man? I think the greatest thing that you must have felt in that time is not the fact that you were incarcerated, but the conscience, that guilty conscience that you unfortunately were responsible for this tragic accident. I mean, that would have to outweigh the fact that you were incarcerated. I mean, because you have to live with that for every fucking day of your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, the day after the incident, I was waiting arraignment, and that's, you know, when they put the formal charges upon you and call your case out, basically letting know what you're being charged with and everything. I was waiting in one of the rooms, and I remember the sheriff. You know, she came in and she was just sitting there guarding me or whatnot, just sitting with me, and she could just tell I was going through something, you know, much more than just, hey, he's in trouble. And she asked me, you know, she was like, "Are you okay?" And I just looked at her and I said, "You know, I got a brother, I got a mother. What if that would have been my brother that died? How would my mom feel?" And, you know, I remember her even approaching my lawyer and saying, "Hey, I would like to speak on his behalf because he's a very remorseful individual and this has really affected him." But yeah, I mean, up until that point, I had never even had an enemy in my life. Never, ever had anybody had a reason to hate me. And anybody that knows me will tell you that about me. I am a very loved individual and always have been. And up until that moment, I've never had anybody have any ill feelings towards me in that way. And obviously, it was very understandable. And a lot of the people that you meet in jail are actual criminals. They are actually actively living a certain life. And I'm not saying I was an angel per se, but I'm saying that they were there, and a lot of them didn't care. A lot of them didn't feel like they were in the right place, and a lot of them just complained about somebody telling on them or whatever the case may be with them. But me, to be honest with you, I never felt that way, because in my heart, in my head, I was where I needed to be at that time because of my actions. I knew that somebody had lost their son, and that somebody would always be feeling this hurt, always be feeling this pain. So, you know, to me, I was resigned to the fact that I was supposed to be there. And for the first time in my life, actually having people hate me, I actually started hating myself. But I tell you what, God will always send you signs. And while I was sitting in the county jail, my wife, who I've been with 20 years, 21 years now, actually, as of December 21st. And she waited for me every day of this incarceration. And one day she said, "Hey, I got a teacher of yours that wants to come visit you in the county jail." And I said, "Okay." And Miss Teresa Phillips, and I'm sorry, I'm putting your name out there, but I've never got to thank you after being released. And I want to thank you because your message that day, and you sitting there across from me and telling me that my actions didn't change who I was and that I was still that good young man that you knew, that message really transformed my time. Because until that time, until I got to hear it from somebody who didn't have any skin in the game, who didn't have the feelings towards me my mother does, or my father, or my wife, or anybody like that, to have her, an educator, come through who has met so many children, to have you come through, it really was something amazing. And teachers don't get enough credit in my book. They just don't.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. What was some of the biggest hurdles that you had to overcome while being incarcerated? I mean, that experience of being locked up, you know, having this on your mind, that conscience, that guilt. But what was going through your head through all those years? And I mean, what was your whole experience like in jail?
Well, as you can imagine, it went through many different stages. And the first one, obviously, was one where I didn't even know how I would get through it. It was to where, you feel like your life is over and you just don't even know how you can make it through. You feel like you'll never be normal again. You feel like you'll never get it back. But I'm going to tell you something that happened to me. And that was the fact that me and my dad had a falling out 10 years prior to me becoming incarcerated. And a lot of it was my fault because my actions actually got me a whooping when I was younger. And we're Dominican, and you will get some beats. Thankfully, I wasn't the one to get the beatings because I was for the most part a good kid. But this particular time, I decided to skip school for a couple of weeks, and my dad got wind of it, and he gave me a whooping. And I'm not justifying his actions, but at the same time, I understood why he did it, and he did it because he loved me. And we got put in foster care because somebody saw in school when I was changing for recreation, they saw the marks on my back, told the teacher, and I was put in the office. And ultimately, me and all my brothers and sisters ended up in foster care. So my dad, I don't know what he felt, but I know that he felt betrayed. I know that my mother had a nervous breakdown during this whole process, and I caused that as well when I was young. So my dad never really fully forgave me. And it was one of those things where a lot of times he would be like, hey, come get your son. Look what he did. And he's talking to my mother, obviously. And before that, I'm his junior. So, he took me everywhere. I was a ball player just like him. I looked up to my father. I've had the greatest parents I could ever ask for. And with their flaws, I would never trade them in for anybody. And anybody that knows them knows that they are good people, decent people. And 3 days after becoming incarcerated, my father came. And I remember saying to myself, oh my goodness, here we go. I don't want to hear this. And he comes in and he stops me. And he said, I'm here for you. I'm going to help you get through this. I will do everything I can to help you out. And I remember him shedding tears. And my dad, old school, real tough guy, loving but tough. And you didn't see tears from him very often. And that day I saw them. And I believe that was the first time I had ever seen them. And it just shook me and helped me realize how much he loved me. And that day, I felt like I got my father back. And I didn't know how much it was affecting me until that day. But I remember going back to my cell after that visit and saying, I got my father back. So, things are going to be all right. And that was the first step. After that, it was just, a process, just a process.
Were you ever fearful for your life in jail? Like, and what jail were you incarcerated in? Was it like a maximum security? Like, were you there with, some pretty hectic offenders?
Yes. Unfortunately, my charge was mishandled. Is one way I could put it. And I was charged with a second-degree murder. So, till this day, I'm a dangerous felon, if you could believe that. And being that I'm a dangerous felon, I was housed with dangerous felons. And I was also, when I received my time, I started my sentence. By the way, I completed every day of my incarceration. So from November 8th of 2007 to November 8th of 2022, I was incarcerated. They denied me parole, the politics behind my case, everybody's role, which is something that I'm not trying to muddy this interview with. But because of that, they were never going to give me the opportunity. But thank God that ended up being a blessing as well, because I was able to come home and lead the life that I have been. But to answer your question, it's one of those things where, to be honest with you, one of the reasons why I gravitated towards your show was your appearance. You're a fighter. I saw who you interviewed. I saw what your background is, and I can respect that because the dedication and the grit and determination that it takes to do what you guys have done is amazing. So at heart, I've always been a fighter because that's who I am. I'm resilient like that. And I remember when I realized that I was going to be in the situation around these certain people, I remembered that that's who I am. I like my chances against anybody in a cage. And that's how I looked at it. Was I fearful at times? Yes, because they don't play fair in there. It's not always one-on-one, and it's not always a case where it's going to be fists. You know, somebody could come with something else. And I know people who have gotten the worst end of that, you know. But all in all, I felt protected. I'm gonna tell you a quick story that happened to me. When I was being not arraigned, but when I was being checked into the county jail, and Kansas City County Jail, by a lot of people's standards, it's not the best place to be. There's some worse ones, but it goes down in there as well. So I'm being transferred to my cell. This is the first cell that I'm going to as an inmate. And I walk down this long hallway, and the guard says, "Open number 4." And right away I said, "Open number 4?" And I said to myself, I'm going into number 4? And I was born on April 4, which is 4-4. My dad played with the number 44 in baseball. So my number, I cut it, and it's always been 4. So when he said open number 4, that was the first time that I said, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is for me, and that cell is mine, and God has got my back. And as weird as it might sound, hearing that phrase, open number 4, took a weight off of me. It took a weight off of me.
Yeah. You've been through a lot in terms of personal growth, Will. You know, how did you tap into your resilience to push through adversity when the odds were stacked against you?
Love. That's the shortest answer I can give you. And I remember my parents always being there. I remember my wife and the role that she played. I remember just all my loved ones. You know, when my case was something that garnered so much attention, and the courtrooms were always full, and they had people lined up in the hallway because they couldn't fit. That's after standing room only. That's after, they couldn't get anybody in there. And I had that behind me, and I knew that they were counting on me. I knew that they wanted me to come back and be a part of their life like I had always been. And that's something to where I was committed. I was committed to live up to their expectations. I was committed to coming back. I was committed to coming back safely, coming back strong, and coming back a grown man, somebody that they can benefit from. So it wasn't a choice for me to look back. It wasn't a choice for me to let myself be beat down by life and the consequences of my decisions. It was one of those times where, just like many times, I had to rise up. And, you know, I'm not proud of this, but I got a S tatted on my chest, a Superman S. And to a lot of people back when I was younger, that's who I was. I was the guy that you would call if you needed help. I was the guy who didn't like bullies. I was the guy who would go to bat for anybody if they were right. And I knew I still had to be that person. But first and foremost, when I knew the road was that long, I knew I had to cling to God. So me and a few of the fellas, we started a Bible study, and we started from the beginning of the Bible. And from page 1, we just met together every day on most days. And after a while, it was even recognized. And instead of having quiet time where everybody had to go back to their cells, we were allowed to partake in our studies.
Yeah. So religion, it has been a huge part of your life, Will. Have you always been a very religious person?
Well, I wouldn't say that I've always been a very religious person, but what I will say is that I've always been a God-conscious person. And that's because my parents always instilled in me that God was watching. I remember being a kid, and every single time I was going to do something, a lot of times I would be like, man, where's he at? Because they keep telling me he's watching. But as a kid, I'm like, where's he at? And I went to Catholic school in the Dominican Republic. That's huge down there. And it was something that, yeah, I mean, I understood the concept of God. I understood that he was in charge, and I understood that we gotta answer for our actions.
Yeah. And the time that you were incarcerated, you had a lot of time to think. What were some of the things that you would do to sort of manage your time? You mentioned you were studying the Bible, but, what were you thinking long term in there?
Long term, it's hard to think long term in there because the days are a repeat. So if you're not getting it from books or you're not getting it from a source that has been there, then you pretty much can fall into the monotony of every single day. And as far as thinking long term, when you are in a position where you can't even think seeing the end of this, for one, I mean, if you have 10, 15 years, even 5 years sometimes feels like, I could imagine that it's too long. But you don't really think long distance because you really don't even know if you're going to see it. And a lot of times it feels like you're not. But I would keep myself busy as far as, passing time, just like any youngster would at the time. I would be, watching TV or playing cards or, whatever the case may be. Just we were just letting the days go by. And then a lot of times you study your case a lot. Like you sit there and you get this discovery and you get this paperwork and you got motions and you got so many things. So you're sitting there and you're just, playing this thing out over your head over and over again. And that in and of itself is hard because even though you want to move on, it's hard to because you're facing, trial. So for 19 months or at least 17 months, I pretty much was facing trial the whole time and having to learn the different aspects of my case and having to actually find out how crazy my case was and to realize that so many of the things that transpired that night were hitting, to be frank. And the victim's family, was even paid because everything was supposed to be kept under wraps. So in order for them to not ask questions about what was transpiring and the things not lining up, obviously there was a lot that went there that wasn't in the paperwork. And, these things, they have a tendency to play with somebody's head,
Yeah. Did the victim's family reach out to you at all? Like, did they come and see you?
No. Unfortunately not. The only time I saw them was for my probation hearing. That was the first time. So, you go to this probation hearing, and mind you, I had waited 10 years and 9 months to finally go up for parole. So my victim and his loved ones, they showed up. And my wife was there, and so was his family. So I walk in, and automatically, all I want to do is look at them and say I'm sorry. That's like my reaction every single time that I had gotten the opportunity. Well, when that happened, right away, I was told, don't look at them, don't say nothing to them. And, unfortunately, I feel like there needs to be changes in the way that cases are treated, because the same way that a person finds out about a person's downfall and the same way they see about his negative actions and the consequences that they had, they should also have a glimpse at the person after time, the person after they've been taking classes, and the person after they've been trying to do everything they can in order to become a better person, in order to grow. And the victim's family, unfortunately, don't get that opportunity. And to be frank with you, I haven't even spoken to him, like I said. So, for his mother not to ever get the chance to ask me questions, for his father not to get the opportunity to say anything that he wanted to me personally, I don't think that's right, because I did have to come back home. I have been out here for 2 years. And had I been given the opportunity, I strongly believe that they would feel different about me. And I would probably be in a position where I could do some things for them. I could cut their grass. I could get her some flowers. I could do some things for her that her son is not here to do for her. And I could never obviously take his place, but who would want to do something for her more than me? Somebody who has played the role and somebody who is capable. And anybody knows me knows I'm capable of that. And unfortunately, we'll never know if I get that opportunity or not.
Have you tried reaching out to the family?
No. Unfortunately, I don't think that that's advisable. And I don't think that that is something that would even fly well. I don't think that, I don't even know. Now that you mention it, there should be somebody I can talk to and request something like that, but I wouldn't even know where to start because something like that has never been proposed or presented.
Yeah. What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced once you were released? Like how did life seem afterwards?
Man, technology is, I must say that I had never held a smartphone before. And phones are computers now. And I don't know much about computers. And I'm sure you were maybe surprised when I said, hey, I would like to do a technical check before we go on because, I got to make sure that I use the software properly because obviously I had never done it. This is my first interview. I want to thank you for allowing me to do this because, the name of your show that resonates because it's Unleashed. And in a sense, this is what's happening. I've always wanted to come forth. I've always wanted to offer something to people. And I always want people to learn from my mistakes and from the choices and decisions that I have taken. And that's impossible for it to happen if I don't come out and I don't engage the people and speak to them. So being able to do this means a lot to me. And this is something where I knew it was a matter of time. And I'm glad you allow me to do this on your platform. But technology was hard. Obviously, going from being in that situation and having to be so guarded and having to basically turn off your emotions to a certain degree. You can't lose it in there. You have to stay level-headed. You can't be too high, too low. You can't give people a way in to come at you in a sense. And it presents challenges, I must say that my family helped me out. My daughters, my wife, they took a lot of care for me. They made sure that I was doing the things right with the phone. They made sure that I was on top of things, and they made sure to help me figure out my new routine. And not being in society that long does change, the way you were able to interact because you have to train yourself for so long to do it in another way. Thankfully for me, I have my wife coming to see me every week for the most part. And I always had that connection to the world. I always had that outlet that while I was at visit, I could talk to her and I could get things off my chest. And not every time, obviously, because I got to be there for her to get things off her chest, more importantly than the other way around. And they have played a great role, though. And I must say that I always trained myself for life outside those walls. And I did it by always having discipline with a routine as far as waking up, and making sure that I hold myself accountable for what I did with my time, making sure that I remained active as far as physically, making sure that I would be, quote unquote, in shape to come home. So I was able to do it in what I would say a smooth fashion. And I had some injuries when I was released. So I've had 5 surgeries. I've had 3 knee surgeries and a shoulder surgery on each side. And these 2 and 1 of the knee surgeries, it's been since my release. So it's a thing to where they don't want to spend the money. It's not like in the federal system where the feds, they pretty much take care of you as far as sending you out for medical. And the state, especially Missouri State Prison, I can't speak for any other place, but they don't want to send you out for anything. And unfortunately, I got the raw end of that. So I came home with injuries that had been lingering for years. And I was finally able to take care of them. But I tell you what, during COVID, which is something that I completely missed, I wasn't out here for the masks and for the social distancing, but in there it was a different animal as well. But we had to be distant from one another. So I ended up going and doing yoga for a year. And doing yoga for a year straight actually opened up my shoulders and gave me the balance that I needed to actually function better and be able to move around. And I also read a book called Becoming a Supple Leopard. I forget the author's name, but it's a great book. And I learned about how the body is supposed to function, how you're supposed to move, how the body is always in a constant state of healing itself. And as long as we don't do anything to harm it continuously, it'll continue to heal. So learning how to move properly actually gave way to some type of healing. And obviously it didn't take care of the whole problem, but I was able to function and I was able to stay active and I was able to keep myself together.
What were some of the injuries from?
Oh, I've played sports my whole life. My whole life I've been active. I've played a lot of basketball. I'm from a baseball family, actually. In the Dominican Republic, you know, we're known for playing baseball. And so I've played plenty baseball, plenty basketball, a lot of football, my fair share of fights. Man, you name it. It took a toll on my body. And, you know, going to prison, it was one thing to where from the outside looking in, you lose everything. But I didn't lose my athletic ability. I didn't lose the opportunity to go outside and play basketball or play softball or do these things. And for the most part, when I was engaging in these things, I had a piece of my childhood back. So every chance I got, I would do these things. And they take a toll on your body.
Yeah. And your wife, Will, she sounds like a remarkable person. And I reflect just on the way things are between men and women. It's a very difficult time right now. We've got a bit of a situation in the dating world where just men and women are just finding it very difficult. But I speak to a lot of men and what they want and what they value in a woman, like a woman that's 100% down for you through the dark times, through the hard times, that's with you every step of the way, man. That's something money can't buy. And what a remarkable person your wife is. You know, how has she been so supportive? What was her mindset going through all this?
And remarkable is not even enough. You know, I'm speechless a lot of times when I think about it. To find somebody like that, hindsight is, like they say, 20/20. And I will say that God allowed me to keep everything I needed in order to succeed, in order to be happy. And the greatest gift a man can have is a woman that's down for him. And I had that. And it's not only for somebody to actually be there for you, but it's for them to do it in the manner that they're supposed to, in a manner that brings you peace instead of chaos. And that's what she did. Because to be honest with you, when everything happened, I was determined for us not to be together. We were young. She was 22 years old when I got incarcerated. I was 24. And if you love somebody, if you truly love somebody, you could not expect that person or even want that person to go through what she went through because of my actions. So me telling her that she should move on and do her life is something that I did on at least a few occasions. I did it because I've always loved her and I've always wanted the best for her. But it's something to where she just would not do that. And she was asked, you know, and in a way, I kind of don't even like mentioning it, but I will because these are her words. And when asked why she would do it or how she could do it, she said that she could spend every day that I was gone looking for somebody else, and she would never find somebody like me or even close to me, and that I would come home and she would be miserable. So she said it was best for her to stick it out. And, you know, that's what she wanted to do. It's something remarkable. And I must say that true love is not, it's not something you see every day. Sometimes people say 1 in a million, and I say it's probably less than that in the way she did it. And not only to be there, but to want to be there and to do it in a way that, like I said, she brought me peace. She was my rock. She was my rock.
That's
And
fucking
it's my rock.
incredible.
And it's my rock.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. Like, what a remarkable person your wife is. And, you know, behind every successful man is a woman that stands by his side, you know, that's with him through the hardships. And I generally believe women have this superpower. They really do. Like a good woman that's supportive, that helps you on your journey, you know, that's with you in the downs. I honestly believe you watch that man build an empire. I really do think that's what a lot of men really want, is a supportive woman. That's incredible, man. What a fantastic woman your wife is.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, you know, watch him build an empire. And I've I'm an entrepreneur by heart. Like this is something that, especially, you know, what I did do towards the end of my sentence was think about, like when I got to 24 months, it was like, I'm 2 years away. I've already done 13. It's right there. And then it became real after 24 months. It became something to where I started thinking about my future. And one thing that I always said coming home, and I even talked to her on numerous occasions because I wanted us to be on the same page. See, one thing about me is I never wanted somebody to think that they were going to get somebody and then receive somebody else. So I was always upfront about everything. And I always said, excuse me, I always said that the least I could do for my loved ones is be honest with them. No matter what the truth is, if they ask me about something or they need to know about something, just tell them the truth, because you've already done enough to break their heart and to put them through things. So the least you can do is be honest. So I would sit with her and I said to myself, what does making a living look like? What does putting food on the table look like for me after 15 years of being incarcerated? Not having a college education, not having a career. Before going to prison, my career, and I use career loosely, I should say, was moving furniture. And I was very good at it. And, you know, I had maybe hopes of one day starting a moving company. And I'm going to tell you why. I remember going and doing the billing on these jobs and billing $800, $900, $1,200 and know that I was only going to see a small fraction of that, even though it was my hard work and my sweat that moved that furniture. Yes, your truck. Yes, your gasoline. But I'm doing the heavy lifting here, literally. So I said to myself, life after prison has to have freedom to work for myself. No matter what it is that you do, if you're able to do it in a way that is honorable and that in a way that you get what you're worth doing said job, then that's a good job to me. You know, I actually came home and I used to tell her, I said, whatever I do, I have to start some type of business because I have to work for myself. I have to have freedom of time because time was something that I paid with dearly. And money is something that I didn't want to be making somebody else's dreams come true. Not directly with my work and you're getting all the money. So I said to myself, I got to do something. And interestingly enough, I knew somebody very close to me that works in the with a realty company. And I went ahead and got a contract cleaning buildings. So I got a whole apartment complex. So what I did was I opened a business called Speaks for Itself, and I got fully insured. I got all the bells and whistles that they ask for in these major companies, and I started my own cleaning company. And cleaning is something that I've been doing my whole life. And cleaning is something that is about effort and about having, attention for detail. And it's something that I've done all my life, like I said. And in prison, I would do it because if you don't do it, then you're going to be living in filth, literally. And you're surrounded by so many people that are sharing a shower and sharing things that they don't care. So if you don't do it, it's not going to get done. So I would actually sign myself up to clean the bathroom every morning. And I would go work out at 9:15, come back at 10:20, and spend 20 minutes cleaning the bathroom, the showers, the stalls, and doing these things. And I would do it, and people would look at me, and sometimes they would say, man, why do you do this? Why do you do this? And I would say, I'm training. If I can't handle this and do this just because it's the right thing to do, what makes you think that God is going to hand me something better later? So coming home, I was like, man, I went from doing it for free to getting paid good money to do it. So it was a beautiful thing to start my own business. And like I said, to work for myself and to get what I felt was fair. And to know that even working part-time, sometimes I was making full-time money. So it's one of those things where that was a nice transition. I was able to get my surgeries and go straight into working for myself. And since then, I've started more businesses. I'm actually wearing the T-shirt. It's called Beard Love.
Yeah.
So I've had a beard since 2012. I became a Muslim in 2012. I entered the faith of Islam. So alhamdulillah, I was sitting there, and when I came home, I was like, man, I'm gonna get something for my beard. I'm gonna put something real good in there, and it's gonna grow nice and all these things. So it didn't turn out like that. I actually tried all these products, and my wife at some times would be like, why do you have so much of the same stuff? And I would tell her, baby, it's just not working. It's not doing what I wanted to do. So ultimately, I settled on a locally made, all natural beard balm, and that's what I settled on. But I realized that I was settling later on down the line. I was actually on my second trip to Egypt, and I was at a cafe talking to a brother named Muhammad Atla from Touchwood, is the parent company. And I was talking to him, and he was telling me all about these natural products. And as soon as he was done, I was like, man, I need something for my beard. And he said, oh, I got you. And I said, no, I'm serious. I need something for my beard. And he said, I got you. And he did. I got back. He took me to his facility. I went on and tried the stuff when I came home, and it was an unbelievable product. And when I reached out through his brother-in-law in order to be able to get something here locally from Egypt, he said, would he like to sell it? And Beard Love was born. I came up with the name and the concept, the different scents with me and my partner Sharif, and yeah, we started our company. We've been online for 3 months now, and it's been a struggle, but the product speaks for itself. It's all natural, and people are more worried now about what they put on their face and then what they're eating. So we gotta keep it organic.
Have you always had that entrepreneurial mindset? Like, have you always been very much that type of person to pursue becoming an entrepreneur?
I would say yes. As a kid, I remember being 5 years old in the Dominican Republic and actually being part of a group that would go out and shoe shine. So I've been a worker all my life, and it's something to where, I'm one of 6. I got 3 brothers, 2 sisters. We all grew up in the same household. So it wasn't to where, my parents being immigrants and coming from the Dominican Republic and not speaking the language and not having certain opportunities. It was kind of tight for us, and there was sacrifices that they made that ended up, in their eyes paying off. And we didn't just get what we wanted. So it was always ingrained in me that you had to work for what you want. And that's what I did. From a young age, I always had a mind frame of working. And I've been a leader all my life. And it's something that, obviously when you're younger, you don't think like that. You don't realize it. But when you hear it enough from people, and when people gravitate towards you in order to figure some things out or get help with something or whatever the case may be, you realize they're coming to me for a reason. And actually, I joined Toastmasters. Was one of the highlights of when I was incarcerated. I actually joined Toastmasters towards the end of my incarceration. I believe it was 2016. So it wasn't technically the end, but it was halfway through there. And somebody told me about Toastmasters. And they said they got coffee, they got treats, and you get to go out and hang out from some people that come in off the streets for a while. So I was like, man, that sounds cool. So I came for the coffee and I stayed for the speeches. But they helped me figure out a lot of things as far as public speaking, as far as expressing myself, the different things that make a difference when somebody is gonna be effective doing it. And I gravitated towards public speaking, and I had some good moments doing that.
Yeah. So you've branched off into this entrepreneurial route. Is there the possibility of reaching out to schools and talking with young kids? Because I got to be honest, man, your transformation and your whole journey is fucking incredible. And what a remarkable and motivating and inspirational person you are. Would that ever be on the cards for you to maybe reach out to school kids?
Let me tell you something. Actually, I'm a member of YSU. That stands for Youth Speaker University. And they were running a cell at the time. And I ran into it, in the algorithm. And I went ahead and reached out to them, had a meeting on the phone. And they said, man, I think you would be great for it. So at the time, you're thinking, yeah, everybody's going to say that if I'm going to pay you. But in my heart of hearts, I always knew. So I've been a member of YSU for a while now. But let me tell you what happened to me when I got hit with reality out here in the free world. And it's the fact that I really did not have much to offer outside of a prison story. That was what I had. I had a prison story that obviously, somebody from a good family goes to prison, has to do this much time, and you can learn and grow from that. But then what else is that? What do you have to show? What gives you credibility to actually have to speak to somebody about something, And that's why I feel like this is the time now. Here I am, 2 years removed from prison, and I got not one, not two, but 3 businesses. Because now I'm actually going into the supplement field, all natural supplements. And I'm starting with a great product. It's actually a Shilajit honey mix. And anybody that knows about Shilajit, I've been taking Shilajit for over 6 months now. And I'm also a certified personal trainer. I took the time that I was down with my injuries after the surgeries to actually study the texts and to take the courses. And I became certified. So I've been a certified personal trainer for over a year now. And the reason I did that was because I wanted credibility when I was teaching people about movement and about the things that I had learned. And see, to me personally, prison was like a social experiment, because I'm not going to say I didn't belong in prison, but I can honestly say I'm not the prison type. And I got to sit back and kind of see how people move and what they do and who does what for who and who does this, why, and all these things, and got to see the people who work out and their demeanor in prison and the way they move and the way they take care of themselves, the way they don't get as sick and the way their moods are better and all these things. You learn these things that otherwise you couldn't learn. So for me personally, prison was a really long life hack. When you go without things that you think you would die without and you don't die, you realize you didn't need them. When you go all these years missing on certain things that don't even come to mind, then you realize it didn't matter. Money is honestly something that didn't even come to mind much. And even when my mom and dad would ask me what I'm going to do for money, I would always say, don't worry, God's going to provide. Why? Because I put him first, and I'm a good person, and I'm a worker. So I'm going to get out here, and I'm going to get opportunities presented because of who I am. And thank God that's exactly what happened. And my last opportunity, I was actually setting up, and I was selling my beard products. And then I met somebody who has a facility that has been in business for many, many years. He approached me. He liked my demeanor. He liked the way I sold my products. And one thing led to another. And next thing you know, he had extended an invitation. And me, what I've been doing ever since coming home is trying to build something that brings a lot of people joy. And I'm in the beginning stages because, like, when I first got out, I was like a deer in headlights, so much coming at me. And I'll always remember the way my wife said my expression was and how she was a little nervous and a little afraid for me at first. But I adjusted, and thank God I've been making the proper moves, and I've been putting him first and going to work. And I've been sacrificing everything I'm making. What I'm making with the cleaning, I'm putting it into this. And starting business is not easy. And the beard business is a tough one because so many people don't use those products. Women don't use beard products. Half the men don't have beards. They don't use beard products. Half the men that have beards don't use beard products because they could care less about taking care of their beard. And I had to find these things out. And I got a great product, but it's the great product that nobody ever knows about, you know? So we're working, but this next product is good for everybody. And that's what I learned from the first one. You have to have something that you could go door to door, knock on that door, and when somebody opens, you can say, hey, this is what I got for you. This is what it'll do for you. Try it out. So now with the Shilajit honey, like I said, I've been taking Shilajit for over 6 months. It's a great product. It helps keeps people with energy, keeps your immune system up. And we're gonna delve into other products, but Pujols Natural Solutions is my newest venture. And I'm happy to say that the world will soon see the fruits of that.
You know what, too, man? You really are. Just talking to you, you are a beacon of hope, a beacon of strength, and a light at the end of the tunnel. Because tragically, all over the world, man, you are, man. You know, you really are. And tragically, all over the world, Will, the suicide rate in men is so damn high. And I think in the US, 45% of the population are men. It's one man every minute will tragically take his own life. And men are really doing it tough right now, man. And we know the suicide rate is higher in men than it is in women. And even over here in Australia, I read a very alarming stat. I think it was 22 or 23, 2,500 Australians tragically took their own life. And majority of those people that took their own life were men. And what would be some advice? What would be the message that you could share to the men out there that are really going through some hard times? Because we need role models like you, man. We need people that are, you know, have been through hardships and you know, and I wish I had that too. I wish I had someone, you know, when I was going through a difficult period in my life to say, hey, look, it's going to be okay, one step at a time. What would be your message to all the men out there?
It starts with God. You got to have God in your life because when everything is uncertain, just as most days are, we never know what opportunity is going to come. We never know what our actions is going to lead to. We never know the outcome of things before we do them. And God is the one that controls everything. You have to have that or you don't have anything to hold on to because everything else just goes here and there. He's the only one that will be there no matter what. The world cannot rotate without him. And I have to say that you have to learn to love yourself. because what people do and how they act and how they respond to things towards you or anybody else is never a reflection of me or you or anybody but themselves. So you cannot give people the power to control you by controlling your emotions or having you feeling like you're in despair to a level that it would lead to taking your own life. And just know that people who love you will need you. No matter what you're going through, they will always love you. And it comes a time where we have to love ourselves, and we have to realize that we have to be the solution. A lot of people right now are waiting for somebody to come and save them. Who are we gonna save? That should be the mentality. And there's always somebody who's down at the bottom looking up at you while you're sitting there looking down on yourself. So quit focusing on the people that are above you and focus on the people that are underneath you, because if you help somebody come from underneath you, you will both rise to the top. And that's life. It's principles. We have to act like we work for God, because we do. And that's why I say it starts with him. And, you know, I became Muslim in 2012. And I did it because I was studying God and his word since the beginning of my incarceration. And it was a progressive move. And then one day I actually ended up with the final text in my hand. And anybody who's ever read a Quran, if you haven't, I suggest it. And if anybody has, they know that this is undoubtedly the word of God. And anybody will say that due to the miracles that is contained in this book. And these are miracles that came to reform a civilization at a time where men were burying their own daughters. And it came to give women their rights and to have men act right. And we have to cling to that, because if we don't, then we'll fall for anything. And I got to say that people now more than ever need to come together. And the way that this world is divided, and it goes back to me being able to speak to my victim's family, because ever since that day, we have been divided. But if we were together, we would both be stronger.
Yeah.
We would both be stronger.
Yeah. There's a war going on right now, Will, with regards to masculinity and what it means to be a man. I think men, unfortunately, I think are a little bit under attack. Young boys especially too, mate, they're lost. Because I was born in the 80s. I had my action idols. I had Bruce Lee, Van Damme, Schwarzenegger, Seagal. I had all these actions.
I had them too.
Were you born in the 80s?
We need, as men, we need to be unapologetic.
Yeah.
As far as masculinity goes. See, there's a thing. And you asked me, is anything off subject? And I told you no. I told you no because I'm an open book. I tell you no because when I speak from the heart. And what I have in the heart is what I have. God put it there. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm also, like I said, Dominican. I've been seeing my father. My father and my mother have been together 42 years. My father leads, my mama follows. That's the way we were created. When she got made off of Adam's rib, it was to assist Adam. Point blank. And just like you said, behind every man who is successful is that woman holding him down. There it is. That means that he leads, she follows. And when he's ready to fall back, she holds him up. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a strong woman. If I didn't have a strong woman, I wouldn't have a woman at all right now because she wouldn't have been there. So while I was gone, she stepped up and she was going to work and she was doing these things and holding the family down and holding me down. So you can't tell me that there's not a place for a woman to be strong. And I want to say something that I don't think I've heard anybody say yet. And that's this. Women want to compete with men and get on their level. And all I got to say is this. If a woman would just own her role and do what she was made to do, which is carry a baby for 9 months and then populate the earth, That's a mic drop moment. How can I compete with that? I can't, so at the end of the day, that's her role though. And like I said, women are going to be strong. We need them to be strong. But at the same time, we have to be able to say, this is a man, this is a woman. Not, what are your pronouns? That's come on, man. And then, coming home and having to even see this stuff and having to see a application before I get surgery where it says, what are your pronouns? What? I said, what is this? What is this? And unfortunately, it's chaos. It's chaos right now. And not only are men under attack, but so are women, because they're being taught and trained into thinking that acting like a man is how you get value. And have them competing with men. How can you compete with men? When will a woman be able to outlift me? And I mean a normal woman. I don't mean Olympians. And they might not be able to outlift me. So let's be fair. Let's be real. The man is the man. The woman is the woman. And the children need to be protected. And unfortunately, the way they are being allowed to make decisions that are going to negatively impact them for the rest of their lives, that might even lead to the same suicide that you're talking about, is shameful on so many levels. And again, that's where God comes into play.
Yeah. I genuinely believe too that there is a war on both genders. I think women aren't really in touch with their femininity, and men especially are having a difficult time, expressing their masculinity. They don't have any role models to look up to. And, we are in a situation where I think it's becoming evident that we've got bigger problems right now. And I think this has exacerbated not just the dating world, just the way we interact with one another. We have a declining birth rate as well. And this is far bigger than people can ever imagine. And I really do think men especially, we're in a situation where young men are lost. They're struggling to find direction in life. And, I always owe my martial arts training into the person that I am today. I've been fighting for over 30 years. And
that's nice.
Doing something that's difficult. I know I always encourage men to pursue difficult things, and it doesn't have to be martial arts or fighting. It can be getting into the gym. It can be doing hard things, running a marathon. It can be CrossFit, whatever, you decide to do difficult things. But as you're a father, you mentioned you've got 2 daughters. Do you have a son as well?
No boys yet.
No boys.
That's in the future. But I tell you what, I have 3 daughters. I got one from a previous marriage. I'm actually a grandfather now.
Wow.
And, it's the truth. But I was always glad in a way that I didn't have a boy, because I wasn't there for 15 years. So who would have led him to be a man? You understand? So the way that even the incarceration rates and the way that people are being kept away from their families for that long is also affecting as well, because the boys, like you said, no role model. And unfortunately, these are things that need to be taken into consideration. To be honest with you, I look around and I can only shake my head, because there isn't anybody for these kids to look up to. And it's a shame, because a lot of the people that actually try to step up and do the right thing, sometimes they get vilified as well. And I'm not talking about, over the top people. I'm talking about your everyday people. And we need to really come together and figure out how we're going to right this ship. And this is something that, like I said, unleashed. This is what brought us together. This is why we're here, and I'm here. And up until now, we've never had a conversation like this. Up until now, the world has never heard me speak like this. And I'm not running out of words anytime soon. And actions, though, is where it's going to start. And just like you said about speaking to the children, that's something that I will be engaging back in soon, because now that I'm sitting here talking to you, I realize now more than ever just the need for it, because you're not the first person to say it, but you're the first one to say it live, you know?
Yeah, and I do, man. I generally think that you would be a voice for the young men out there, because they do, man. They need guidance right now. There's a lot of fuckery going on in the world, and we've got so many different avenues that we can come at it, or different angles that we can come at it. And being a voice that you are, someone that's been through hardship and adversity and obstacles, and showing men, hey, look. To become a man, to become, the type of man that you're destined to be, is going to take work. It's going to take grit. You're going to have to push through adversity and overcome trauma and obstacles. And I always say some of the kindest and most benevolent people I've ever met in my life, have been through some sort of adversity, obstacles, hardship, trauma, and even because I train fighters, a lot of the guys that I fight, they are so friendly, but they've all been through the same shit. We've all been through the same hardship. And what was the transition like? Coming out of jail, you would have just noticed a huge shift in the way the world is today. What were some of the things that you noticed about when you came out of prison?
Well, excuse me. And before I get into that, I will say one thing to one of the points that you made earlier. And how you said that it doesn't necessarily have to be fighting that a boy does. But I think that it should be some type of training. And I'll say that it's because the adversity that you face in life, there's a small piece of that in that. So to learn how to overcome obstacles, and to learn how to get better at a trait, and to learn how to be able to walk standing tall, because of the skills that you're learning, and to be able to be sure about yourself because you know that you're a strong person. That's huge in a boy. And as far as a boy helping him become a man, that's better than working out. That's better than doing a lot of other things, because there is that hardship, and there is that mentality. There is that grit that we talked about. So stepping out and seeing the world. Oof. Man. I I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. It seemed like men were working to be women. It seemed like even what they were wearing. I remember going to the gym, and I don't subscribe to the skinny jeans, the tight, my pants got to be tighter than my woman's, and all these things. I don't believe in that. But I'm in the gym, and I got these baggy shorts on, like real baggy. And back in the day, that used to be the thing. And now I like modesty, so I still like my baggy clothes. And there was a couple, and they start laughing, like he's telling her something, they're snickering, and they look at my pants, and I'm like, what the heck? Then I look up and I see that this kid's 6'3", and his shorts are shorter than his woman's shorts, eyes hanging out. And I said to myself, what world do I live in that this guy is laughing at me because of baggy shorts, and he's got his girlfriend's shorts on? And man, that's sad. And also, I will say that there's a thing going around where everybody wants to be a victim, and everybody wants to focus on how they've been wronged. And I don't believe in that ideology. I believe that a person needs to realize that things can always be worse. And a person needs to realize that if you deal with a person regularly, there's going to be aspects of that person's personality and his actions that are going to rub you the wrong way. But 9 out of 10, if you deal with this person regularly, the good will always outweigh the bad. And this is why you deal with that person. And just like I said about my parents, that they're not perfect, but I wouldn't trade them in for anything. We can sit down and there could be a long list of things that I could complain about, But the list of things that I learned and the list of things that they've done for me from day one, from when my mother started carrying me, that I started weighing her down, will always outweigh anything that they could have ever done. So you have even kids these days who hold their parents in disgust, and they're complaining about them and this and that. And I'm thinking to myself, how could you? How could you?
Yeah.
And we need to get away from that. We need to get away from trying to be a victim or trying to see how somebody wronged us. And we need to get back to trying to help other people.
Yes. Yeah. What can women learn from your wife, Will? What can women do to help support men in this situation right now, which is hyper competitive, where you're right, you made a good observation. Men and women are seeming to be competing with one another. It's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. We shouldn't be competing with one another. We should be helping each other, to grow, evolve, and raise a beautiful family. That's what's always worked for civilizations for hundreds of thousands of years. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, men and women competing against one another. But what can women do? What can women learn from your wife, especially going through hard times? Your wife was with you every step of the way.
I would say that it starts with men being men. A woman has got to see that the person that she's with is an upright man. It's a straight up man. She don't want to know if she don't want to feel like she has to question his manhood or question this or question that. He has to assert himself in a way that is gentle, understanding, but strong. And he has to always make her feel protected. She has got to know that she's rolling with a man. And the way my wife was able to say, I'm going to wait on my man because that's my man, then that starts with the way we carry ourselves and the way we protect them and the way we provide for them and the way that we show up for them. But women need to understand that men are already in a constant state of battling. They're battling for jobs. They're battling for promotions. They're battling for so many things. Just recently, I was in the Dominican Republic on vacation. I left on the 17th. On the 16th or 15th, I had a meeting to discuss the contract that one of the contracts that I handle. And everything was great. No complaints. Well, 3 days later, I got a letter, a email saying that they were going with somebody else due to money reasons, financial reasons. So obviously that means that somebody undercut me. Now, they wrote a great letter of recommendation, and the email in which they broke the news to me was a nice email, but it doesn't put food on my table. What happens if my wife was to say, look at you, now you done lost the contract, now how you supposed to get money? See, there's a difference. The woman could come in and say, we always gonna be all right because you gonna hold us down. If a woman does that, a man right then and there, he says, you right, we gonna be good. But if he's got to hear this on top of losing the contract and on top of everything else that he has going on, then, we got to come home, and we got to come to a home of peace, not a home of chaos. And women, they have to know that think about this, in order for a man to reach his full potential, he needs the assistance of the right woman. Now, everything that I've been able to accomplish has been assisted by my wife. So how could I ever forget that? So that's to say that we're a team. That's to say that, like, I literally could not have made it to where I've made it so far without her. Yeah. And all my shortcomings with the paperwork, with the invoices, with the filling out paperwork, who does that?
Yes.
You see, so again.
You're 100% right, man. It starts with men. We have to become better physically, emotionally, mentally. To be a good man, you must go through hardships. You must go through struggle. And this is what our war veterans have taught us. Life was difficult back in those days, going through the Great Depression, World War I, World War II. We we understand that the journey within ourselves is hard, it's arduous, it's long, it's fucking difficult, it's really fucking hard, like it is for anybody. But yeah, you're 100% right that it starts with men to get that respect and to be on that mission and that purpose. It starts with you. Yeah, I totally agree with you, man, because I think right now, yes, men are a little bit under attack, but we have to improve. You know, we really do. Men have to go out and do difficult things to become better as men. And if we want better women, it starts with us. I totally agree with you.
They're under attack, but in a lot of sense, they're giving in. They're giving in. That's the thing. We have to stop giving in and start showing up.
Yeah, 100%, 100%, man. So what does success mean to you now?
Success lies in how many people you can help. How many people can you help? How many people can have food on their table because you had a part in that? By the permission of God, we have to strive. And that to me is success. Success is the same amount of people that suffered pain and had to go through loss. I want more than that, to be able to say, I am where I am today because of his help. And to me, when I go out and I strive to succeed in business and succeed in anything, it rarely ever starts with me, because I have everything I need in this world. And looking back to when I was a child, I've always had it. I've never gone without. The food has always been on the table. The clothes has always been on my back. So how could I ever complain? So therefore, that means that I've always had everything.
Yeah. So Will, how, in your view, how important is failure on the road to success, and what has failure played in your personal growth?
I think that a person truly grows when he's broken down. I think that a person and muscles can be described in the same way. You got to tear muscle down. Right now, all this is hurting, and all this knows that it got some work, and therefore it's going to come back and it's going to be better. And it's the same thing with men. I believe that who I am today was always inside of me, but what brought it out was the pain, was the suffering. That's what did it. And I believe that even with everything that I've taken from my first business into my second business, and then from the second business into the third, like I said earlier, I went from starting a business that only it's called a niche, basically, a niche business, where it's only for a few people. So if out of 10 people, only 3 use your product, how is that any good? So if out of 10 people, 8 or 9 use your product, then you're doing something better. And I learned that from business. I had to make that mistake and start that company, which is a company that I completely believe in. And I will continue to help that company move on. And the next one, though, it's a different beast, but it's an evolution. It's taking what you've learned, and failure teaching you a way not to do something. So for the next one, you turn it up a little bit, you tweak it. And ultimately, though, pain and suffering is what gives you perspective in life. See,
Yeah.
I didn't have a toilet until at least maybe 6 years old. In the Dominican Republic, we had a hole in the ground in the backyard. And it was when I was 5 years old or 6 that I remember them bringing that outhouse. And the water ran twice a week. Still, in most places, it runs twice a week. And you fill up tanks. So when you ran out of water in those tanks, you had to go find the well. Then you find the well and you bring back the buckets. So it's nice to have a situation where, as a child, you knew these things. And then you come to a place and it's completely different. And everything is right there. But in the back of your mind, you will always remember what it's like not to have it. So when you have it, you appreciate it. And you understand that it's not everybody that has it. And the same thing with doing time and being able to then finally come home and be in a situation where you can partake in things that you hadn't been able to do for so long. When you do it, it's nice, it's different, it's fresh, and you appreciate it. And you realize that the worst day out here is better than the best day in there. And I'm talking about anything outside of religion or spirituality, because I believe that prison is what gave me the opportunity to actually take a step back and be strict from everything and focus on what really matters.
Yeah.
So having that is key. And like I said, that's my personal life hack, because now I know what a bad day is. And it's hard for me to have any out here. There's tough times. There's always tough times. But in perspective, things can always be worse.
Pain plus reflection leads to progress. And you could use that analogy. Diamonds are built under pressure. And anything that we do in life, whether it be business, entrepreneurial, for a sporting event, or if it's overcoming mental health challenges or relationship struggle or financial struggle, they're just building blocks. They're stepping stones to something greater. And the path to success isn't sort of like linear. You know, it's up and down. It's like a fucking heartbeat, you know, a heart rate monitor. Like,
and sometimes it's just straight.
Yeah.
And you feel like you ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's not a linear progression. It's very much the opposite. And, you know, your story is inspiring, man. It really is. And I can't wait to see where life will go for you. But you mentioned your beer business, your beer company, and you've got your cleaning business. And what was the third business that you were talking about? For supplements, was that correct?
Yes, natural supplements.
Natural supplements. And what are you currently working on long term?
Well, I don't do long term so good, because I believe that you got to focus on today. You got to have your goal, and you got to focus on right now and the details that are going to make today and this moment better, because that's just how it's going to work. Ultimately, we all know that if you succeed today and you do good tomorrow and you do good the day after that, as they come, you're going to be improving. So I try to win today, and I leave tomorrow to God.
Yes.
At the same time, I can honestly say that success for me is, like I said, just being able to help people and being able to put myself in a position where people can come to me in order to get some help. That's just, I mean, so many people have a situation where they need just that push. And it could be that you have to understand that in my life, one of the most pivotal individuals was my coach from the age of 12 and 13. This man used to come and pick me up every day for practice, used to come pick me up for games, and used to teach me little things in the chances that he got. He is somebody who I visited recently, 83 years old. His name is Larry Kress. And I'm going to make it my business to go see him regularly now. Why? Because I'm seeing that life is different for him. He's not the same guy that was helping me when I was younger. He is now the man that needs me to show up, because his mind might be slipping, but he still remembers me. And I know that the feeling that he has when he's in my presence is a good one. So if I can bring that feeling to him, I must do that. And I think that that's how we have to live life. We have to approach life as, how are we going to help the people that we come in contact with? Because that's what's going to bring joy. And I mean true joy. I don't mean joy when you get the new car and it's all great until you get a dent on it and then it's just another car. I mean the things that you know mean something to not just you, but to those around you. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm focused on. I'm focused on that. I'm focused on being able to spend time with family. My parents, who went 20 years without me regularly in their life and still are regularly without me in their life outside of phone calls and a visit once or twice a year to the Dominican Republic. I mean, having freedom and you know, freedom comes in many different ways. Freedom of work is a freedom. Freedom of place is a freedom. And just freedom of having peace of mind. That's the greatest freedom.
Yeah.
And I just feel that the future just has to be one that other people benefit from.
Yeah. You know what too, man? I look at life a little bit like driving in pitch black. You can't see where the fuck you're going, but you've got your headlights on. As long as you just stay on the road, stay on the path, just continue to keep going, take one step at a time. And just like compounding interest is doing the daily things, daily practices every day, whether it's meditation, mindfulness, lifting weights, pursuing a hobby, working on your business, working on your family relationships, your romantic relationships, your friendships. It's working in all things in your life and just taking it one step at a time has a huge, profound impact. When I was just mentioning before, what are you thinking about long term? And I think you're right. Staying in the present moment and fixating on what you need to do right now will enable you to have greater success and more accomplishments. And the reward is going to be fucking astronomical once you get to that destination. So a little bit like driving in pitch black night. You've got your headlights on, you can't see where the fuck you're going, but as long as you keep driving, you can still see the road out in front of you, providing that you've got the light on. But it's that analogy that I kind of reuse in life. But I tell you what, man, it's been a fucking absolute honor and a really just insightful conversation talking with you, and what a remarkable journey you've been on, man. And I generally do think that you're a force for good. You're a spokesperson to help so many different people and just be a really sort of a beacon of hope, a beacon of strength to people that are doing it very difficult and having some really hard times in life. Because we need that, man. We need people like you. But where can people find you, Will?
And it's that's the second time you used the word beacon of hope. And I remember when I was denied parole and nobody believed it because people that had been in prison for 20, even 30 years had never seen somebody be denied parole who was doing the things I was doing in the manner that I was doing it. And I had to write a letter to the governor, basically asking him to review my case. And that's exactly the wording that I used in that letter. I said I wanted to be a beacon of hope. And you've said that twice. And it's not lost on me because it brought me back to that letter. That's why earlier it touched me when you said that because that's what I thought about. That's the only time I've ever really expressed that sentiment. And I'm out here. I'm on not the easiest way. It's not the easiest thing to find me right now because I'm not out here. This is actually me coming out, being unleashed. But I'm on I'm on the social platforms, a couple of them. I'm on Instagram. I'm mostly promoting my beard product, and the next stage of my life is coming, and this is the first step. And I thank you once again for having me on your show. You've had 47, 46 interviews before this one, and I also looked at that and I saw the consistency, and I wanted to be a part of that. And it will never be lost on me that this is where I started. This is where I was able to share some of my thoughts and share some of my story. And there's still so much. I mean, you started when I was an adult, you know, and there's a lot to unpack. And I know that a lot of people are gonna need to hear what I got to say. So, God willing, this is only the beginning. You can find me on Instagram, who holds for real. Who holds the number 4? Once again, that's my number. And real. Who holds for real? And that's what I do. I keep it real with people. I think that's the least we can do is show who we are and stand on that. But just be on the lookout because I'm coming. And I'm on here with you. So I also expect you, even though you in a whole different time zone, I expect you to kind of stay in touch with me, because that's what, to me, this is doing. We come together. If we come together and act like this is the only thing that we were supposed to do, we might get nothing done,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
if we stay in touch and we just check on each other and see how everything is going, then, we can extend a hand to one another. And, you could put me in a place, or I could put you in a place where somebody else can benefit. And,
Yeah.
that's just how life is. You never know who's going to be in position to do what for who. And
Yeah.
today is you doing it for me. Tomorrow it could be me doing it for you. We never know. But I believe that with us coming together, it was obviously God's decree, and it's been a pleasure, and it's been nice.
You're welcome, man. No, it was just a privilege chatting with you. And I talked with another gentleman who's from the States. His name's Jim Bernardo. He just released his book, Echoes of Broken Skies, and it talks about the challenges men are facing right now, in particular the high suicide rate and the alarming statistics that's going on, because we're not talking just in America, man. We're talking fucking worldwide. Like, suicide is on the fucking rise. It's really scary, in particular men. And he's worked with a lot of men. He's a trauma and recovery coach. And I'd love to get you in contact with him, because I think you guys could really, put forth some ideas, because he's talked about obviously collaborating with myself, and I work with a lot of people in mental health, and I've had numerous mental health advocates on my podcast, and at the end of the day, man, it's not about me, it's about we. It's about people coming together and connecting and making a fucking positive impact, and just really putting forth some ideas on how we can make the world a better place.
Yeah, see, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm here and I'm open for these things. And I would love to hear what he's got to say. And I would love to see how I could help his movement. And it's something that we could definitely get together. And because it's going to take more than one. There's going to be days that I'm going to be so low that somebody else needs to pick me up. So whenever we are always united, then that helps lift each other up. So whether it's you getting his help, me getting his help, us helping each other, that's how it needs to be. It's gonna take more than one person.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely networking is one of the most important things we need to do, because just like you said, just like you're in Australia and we're in the States, everybody in between needs it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll put you in contact with him, man. So straight after this, I'll give you his details. I think, he'll be very interested in what you have to say in your journey, and, how you've gotten to where you are today, man. But Will, thank you so much, mate, for taking the time out of your day. And this is what my channel's all about. It's about inspiration, inspiring people. It's, life is hard, and that's what I'm hoping this channel is helpful, to give some ideas and some inspirational wisdom, which you just shared as well. And man, thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And
Awesome,
we'll be
Will.
in touch.
We will, man. Thanks, Will. See you, mate.